Good evening. Tonight we are going back 40,000 years to spend one whole night with a small band of people in a river valley at the edge of winter. Here is the first thing to know about their world. When the sun went down, humans lost. Nearly every hunter that walked that valley after dark could see 6 times better at night than any person ever born. Their answer was not a weapon and not a wall. It was a circle of light the size of a living room, rebuilt every evening from wood a child could carry. This is the story of how people slept anyway. The valley runs east to west, and by late afternoon, the shadows of the birch trees on the far ridge have stretched all the way across the river to touch the near bank. There are perhaps 20 people moving along the water's edge, and every one of them, without discussing it, has begun to angle back toward the same low rise of ground above the floodplain. Nobody hurries. Hurrying is for later, for the part of the year when the snow comes early, and this evening is still on the right side of that line. But nobody dawdles either. The sun tells them how much margin remains, and the margin is now about the width of 2 hands held at arm's length against the sky. 40,000 years before anyone will build a wall or write a word, this is the first rule of the evening. You do not let the dark find you away from the fire. A boy of about 9 walks at the back of the group with an armload of deadfall, dry branches the length of his arm, and he keeps stopping to pick up more until he can barely see over the load. He has done this every evening he can remember. Firewood is the one chore that never ends and never waits, because the arithmetic of the night is simple and does not negotiate. A fire that must burn from dusk to dawn on a night that will run 14 hours eats roughly its own weight in wood many times over. The people of this band do not count hours, but they count bundles, and they know the number that means a safe night, and the number that means someone sitting awake in the cold, watching the flames get small. The boy's arms ache. He picks up one more branch. The rise they are walking toward is not much to look at. A shoulder of packed earth and stone, perhaps the height of 2 men above the river, but it has been chosen with a care that would satisfy any military engineer who ever lived. Behind it, a wall of rock goes up steep enough that nothing heavy can come down it quietly. In front, the ground falls away open and bare to the water, so that anything crossing toward the camp must cross in view. The wind here runs along the valley, which means the smoke of the fire drifts out over the open ground, carrying the news of occupied territory to every nose downwind. People did not settle just anywhere and hope. They read ground the way we read a room, and they had been reading it for 100,000 years. An old woman is the first to reach the camp, and the first thing she does is put her hand flat on the ash of last night's fire. This is not sentiment. Under the gray crust, buried coals can hold a live heat from one sunset to the next, and a fire rebuilt on warm coals is a matter of minutes, while a fire struck fresh from stone and tinder, with the light failing and the cold coming down the valley, is long, uncertain work that has ruined evenings, and in the stories the old people tell, ended lives. She feels for the faint warmth the way you might check whether a kettle has boiled, and when she finds it she says nothing, because good news in a careful life is mostly the absence of bad news, and begins to feed the buried heat with grass. All down the river valley, the other residents of the evening are changing shift. The horses that grazed the far bank through the afternoon have bunched together and moved off toward open ground, where nothing can come at them unseen. The reindeer have done the same. Birds that sang all day have gone silent in an order as fixed as any bedtime, thrush first, then the small quick ones in the willows, and their silence is itself information, because everyone in the valley, on 2 legs or 4, listens to the birds to know whether the evening is ordinary. When the birds stop early or stop wrong, or a jay shrieks from the tree line at nothing visible, 20 heads at the camp come up at once. This evening the birds go quiet on schedule, one voice at a time, like lamps going out down a long street. The last direct sun leaves the valley floor while the sky above the ridge is still pale, and the temperature starts down at once, a slow fall that will not stop until an hour after tomorrow's dawn. On a clear night at this edge of the Ice Age world, the air over the river gravel can drop far below freezing while the same air, 1 body length from the fire, stays warm enough to sleep in. That narrow ring of survivable air is the whole architecture of the night. Every plan the band has, where the children lie, who sits where, which way the shelters face, is a plan about that ring. About keeping 24 bodies inside a circle of warmth roughly the size of a modern living room, with 14 hours of dark on the other side of it. They are not the only people who have used this camp. Nobody remembers who first stacked the ring of river stones around the main hearth, and the band does not think of it as anyone's invention, any more than we think of the doorway as an invention when we walk through one. The stones do quiet, constant work all night. They catch the heat of the flames and hold it long after the wood has burned down. They keep the wind from shaving the coals thin from the sides, and they mark, in the plainest possible way, the line between inside and outside. There are no walls here, and will be none for tens of thousands of years. The stone ring is the wall. It is ankle high, and it works. Before the light is fully gone, 2 of the men walk the edge of the camp in opposite directions, not talking, looking at the ground. They are reading the day's mail. A line of pressed marks in the mud by the willows where something heavy walked in the early morning. A tuft of coarse hair on a thorn. A place where the grass has been flattened by a large body lying down, upwind, with a clear view of the camp, and that last one gets a long look and a word passed quietly between them, because it means the camp was watched last night, patiently from cover, by something that chose, this time, not to come closer. They finish the circle and come back inside the ring of light, and one of them adds wood to the fire, not because it needs it yet, but because of what the grass said. The children are gathered in with the same firmness every human child has met at dusk ever since. Not negotiable, not cruel, simply the way the evening is. The smallest ones are already inside the ring, close to the hearth, where the ground itself has been warmed all day by the fire, and gives its heat back up through the sleeping hides like a stove set to low. The older children take one more trip to the wood pile, one more trip for water, and then they too are inside. And an adult glances around and does the count that every parent in history has done at nightfall, touching each head with their eyes, coming up with the right number, doing it again anyway. By the time the first star shows over the eastern ridge, the camp has pulled itself into its night shape, and the shape is a circle. Fire at the center, then the youngest sleepers, then the older children and the mothers, then the outer ring of adults with their feet toward the flames and their heads toward the dark, and finally the low windbreaks of hide and branch that blunt the river wind. It is the same shape a herd makes, the same shape the horses on the far bank are standing in right now, the same shape musk oxen make against wolves, calves inward, strength outward, and no one taught it to anyone. The dark comes up the valley like a tide, and the circle tightens, and somewhere across the river, in the birch shadow where the light fails first, something that has been asleep all day opens its eyes. The old woman's buried coals take the grass takes the twigs, and by full dark the main hearth is burning with a sound like a small crowd talking, and the whole camp is lit in moving orange. A fire this size does several jobs at once, and light is the least of them. It is a heat engine, keeping the ring of survivable air open. It is a signal, visible from the ridgeline, that this ground is claimed by the animal that owns fire. And it is a wall because of one plain fact that shaped every night of the deep past. No predator that walked the Ice Age world, not the lion, not the hyena, not the wolf, has ever been comfortable crossing a line of open flame. They do not understand it, and what the night hunters do not understand, they walk around. The band does not keep one fire. It keeps three, the big hearth in the center and two smaller ones out toward the open ground, spaced so their circles of light touch at the edges, and this is not extravagance but geometry. One fire lights a circle and leaves the whole world behind each sleeper's back in shadow. Three fires, set right, close the gaps, overlap their light, and turn the camp into an island with no dark road into the middle of it. Wood is expensive, carried on human backs one armload at a time, and still the band pays for 2 extra fires every night of the cold season, which tells you exactly what the accountants of that world thought the dark was worth. The wood itself is a language. The birch and willow deadfall the boy gathered burns quick and bright, good for the first hours, for light and show. The oak snag 2 of the men dragged and burns slow and low and holds coals until morning, and it goes on the fire late, banked with ash, a heat savings account for the cold end of the night. Green branches are worth carrying too, though they barely burn, because laid on the flames they make thick, rolling smoke, and smoke drifting low across the open approach is a moving fence of scent and sting that the sensitive noses out there in the dark do not care to push through. 40,000 years before chemistry, the band runs its fire like a dispensary, a different wood for every ailment of the night. The fire has one more job, the strangest one. It makes the darkness around it darker. Every eye that watches the flames, human or otherwise, pays for the light with its night vision, and the band knows this the way you know not to look at the sun. The adults who will keep the first watch sit at the edge of the ring, side on to the hearth, and look outward, past the light, letting their eyes live in the dark instead. A person who stares into a campfire and then looks up cannot see the far bank of the river at all. A person who has kept their eyes averted for an hour can see the whole floodplain by starlight, gray and exact, and can see the moment a piece of the far shadow detaches itself and begins, without any hurry, to move. Fire this reliable is a recent luxury, and the band's relationship with it is older than their species. People had been carrying, feeding, and banking fire for hundreds of thousands of years before anyone reliably learned to start one from nothing. And the difference between owning fire and making fire is the difference between renting the night and holding the deed. In the stories the old woman tells, there are still echoes of the renting years, the ember carried in a horn packed with ash from one camp to the next like the last coal of civilization. The wet season when it went out, what was offered and promised by people kneeling over a cold hearth. She tells those stories on the easy nights. Tonight, with 3 fires up and drawing well, is an easy night so far. Around the middle hearth, the evening meal happens the way it has happened forever, out of a shared pot that is not a pot but a hide slung on sticks, into which heated stones go hissing one after another until the water shivers and the marrow and roots and strips of dried reindeer go soft. Hot food at nightfall is not a comfort, or not only a comfort. A body that goes to sleep with a warm meal in it burns through the cold hours differently, holds its heat longer, wakes less. The band has no word for calories and no idea of metabolism, and has nonetheless arranged its entire evening around the physiology of sleeping warm, because the ones who arranged it otherwise are not ancestors of anyone. With the meal done, the fire settles into its long middle age, and the people settle with it. This is the hour that leaves almost no trace for archaeologists and fills, by any honest estimate, 1/3 of every human life ever lived. The hour of sitting by the fire, doing slow things with the hands, talking in low voices. A spear shaft turning slowly in the heat to harden. A hide being worked soft between 2 hands, and all making holes for a seam. The talk is quiet and circular, tomorrow's ground, yesterday's tracks, the boy's enormous load of wood, gently exaggerated already on its way to becoming a story. Laughter kept low. Low because the night outside the ring is a listening night, and the band prefers to do the listening. The sound of a camp at this hour is its own kind of defense, and everything out in the dark reads it fluently. Steady voices, the knock of wood being split, the crackle of a well-fed fire, all of it broadcasts the same message. Awake, numerous, organized, not worth it. The night hunters of the valley are, above everything else, economists. A lion takes horses at the river bend because horses do not carry pointed sticks and do not throw stones and do not stand in a ring around a wall of flame. Every sound of casual, unafraid activity raises the price of the camp, and the price is the whole game. The band cannot outrun anything in the valley and outfight it only at terrible cost, and has instead spent the whole of the evening making itself expensive. The boy who carried the wood is lying on his back now, inside the second ring, watching sparks go up. They rise from the fire in little crowds, drift sideways when the air moves, wink out one by one and are replaced. Above them, the smoke stands in a slow column that catches the light for the first few meters of its climb, and then vanishes into a sky that is entirely, extravagantly full of stars. The winter river of the Milky Way running right across the valley like a second, brighter version of the water below. Every human being who ever lived before the electric light fell asleep under that sky. The boy is not thinking anything we would need translated. He is warm and heavy-limbed, and the sparks keep rising, and his eyes close on the way up with them. By the time the moon clears the eastern ridge, gibbous and yellow-white, the camp has crossed the border into night proper. Half the band is asleep. The fires have been banked into their long burning shape, flame low, coal bed deep. 2 adults sit at the dark edge of the light, one facing upriver, one down, and a third lies close enough to be woken by a touch. The moonlight has redrawn the valley in silver and black, And it has also, though nobody says so aloud, changed the odds out there, because a bright night favors the watchers, and a black night favors what comes. The moon tonight is bright. On the far bank in the willow shadow, 2 points of pale green light rise, hang still at the height of a big animal's eyes, and go out, which means the eyes have turned away. For now, the man keeping the upriver watch is perhaps 30, and he sits the way people sit when sitting is a skill, weight settled, back supported by a stone he chose for the purpose, one hide over his shoulders and another over his knees, close enough to the banked fire to stay functional and far enough that its light does not blind his open eyes to the valley. He is not tense. Tension cannot be sustained for hours and is no use anyway. What he maintains instead is a kind of wide, unhurried attention, the same attention a good driver spreads across a familiar road, in which nothing in particular is expected and nothing at all is missed. The valley before him is a silver map of known places. He is not looking for shapes. He is looking for changes. His ears are doing more work than his eyes, and they are working on a library. 14 hours of dark every night for every year of his life. He has logged more focused listening than any sound engineer who will ever live, and the night is not noise to him, but a score he knows by heart. River over the gravel bar, steady. Wind in the dead reeds, steady. The small rustle and stop of a vole in the grass, the sudden silk of an owl crossing the fire glow, the far single call of a fox on the ridge, all present, all correct. What his attention is actually tuned for his absence. The night has a hum of small lives, and when a patch of that hum goes silent, downriver, say, by the willows, the silence moves across the score like a held breath, and it means something heavy is walking through it. Somewhere in the second hour of his watch, the far hyenas start up, a long whooping call passed between 2, then 3 voices, rising at the end like a question asked over and over. The sound carries the whole length of the valley. It is a sound that has an address, the caller announcing itself to its clan and to everything else, and the man reads the address without effort, far side of the ridge, moving along it, not toward the river. Around the fire behind him, a few sleepers stir at the sound and do not wake. Their sleeping brains have done the same arithmetic he did, distance, direction, intent, and filed the calls under known and far, and let them pass. The same brains would have every eye in the camp open in half a second, if the whooping came again from twice as close. This is the strangest tool the band owns, and none of them knows they own it. The sleeping human brain does not turn the ears off. It stands a watch of its own, running every sound of the night through old, deep circuitry, and it spends its alarms with a miser's care. The river can rise, the wind can double, the fire can crack like a whip, and nobody wakes. But a footfall with weight behind it, pressed into gravel at the wrong distance, in the wrong rhythm, will sit a dozen sleepers upright before any of them could say what they heard. Modern sleepers in modern rooms still run the same watch, startling awake at a wrong small noise downstairs and sleeping through the storm. It is 40,000 years of nights like this one, still on duty. The watchman's relief will come without any clock. In a band of 20 there are early people and late people, the ones whose eyes get heavy at dusk and drag open before dawn, and the ones who cannot sleep until the deep middle of the night and would sleep until noon if noon allowed it. And this spread of body clocks, which modern life treats as a scheduling problem, is here the whole roster of the night shift. The dusk sleepers are already down and will be up in the black hours before morning. The night owls are awake now, unbothered, keeping the first watch at the hour their bodies prefer. Researchers who have measured sleep in living firelit bands have found the same stagger, and found that across a whole night, the minutes when nobody at all is awake round down to almost none. The band has never once discussed who takes which watch. The schedule wrote itself. Out on the floodplain, the moon shadows are doing their slow clockwork, shortening as the moon climbs, and the watchman uses them the way a sailor uses a lighthouse sweep. Each time the light changes, the map renews. A boulder he has known his whole life sits at the river bend. A driftwood snag lies where the spring flood left it. Between them, a low gray shape that he checks each pass, because it is the right size and the right stillness to be either a stone or a crouched thing, and it has been a stone every night of this camp so far. It is a stone this pass too. The pass after that, it has moved. He does not stand and he does not shout. What he does is lean forward slightly, take a long branch from the woodpile and lay its end in the coals, and the shift in his posture alone is enough to bring the second watcher's head around. Neither speaks. The gray shape out on the flat has stopped being where it was and started being somewhere else, closer by 10 body lengths, and has gone still again, with the boulder now between it and the fires, which is not how stones behave but is exactly how a hunting cat behaves, moving only inside the moments when it believes nothing is watching. The branch in the coals takes light. The watchman lifts it, a comet of orange sparks, and holds it high, and the light of it runs out across the flat and finds, at the edge of its reach, a long, low body pressed against the ground, and a pair of eyes that turn straight into the flame and shine back green as glass. What happens next is a conversation, though only one side of it has words. The second watcher is up now, unhurried, and puts 2 fresh splits of birch on the banked hearth, and the fire climbs, and the circle of light walks outward across the grass toward the crouched shape like a rising tide. The watchman with the torch takes 3 steps forward to the edge of the stone ring and plants the burning branch upright in the earth, a new small fire between the camp and the cat. Then he picks up 2 river stones the size of fists and knocks them together, once, twice, a flat, hard crack that is like nothing else in the valley's score, a sound only humans make. Every part of the message says the same thing. Sane. Awake. Expensive. The eyes out on the flat watch the torch for a long moment, unhurried in their turn, and then the long body rises out of its crouch, turns side on and walks, not runs, back toward the willow dark in the direction of the horse herds, its tail tip moving in a slow, unbothered rhythm, an economist declining an overpriced meal. The watchman stays standing until the shape has been gone from the silver map for 100 slow breaths. Then he pulls the torch out of the earth, grinds its head cold against the gravel, and sits back down against his stone. His heart, which lifted its pace by some amount his face never showed, settles. Behind him, the camp has slept through the entire exchange, all but the third adult, the one who lay down within touching distance, who lifted her head at the crack of the stones, read the watchman's stance for 2 seconds and put her head back down, and this is perhaps the most remarkable thing on the rise tonight. A system so trusted that a lion can approach in the dark and be turned away, and 18 people never know it happened. The night bills its costs to the smallest possible number of sleepers. In the morning, he will point to the pressed grass by the boulder, and the band will look and nod, and the children will be kept closer for a few evenings, and that is all. The moon is high now, and the first watch is ending on its own schedule, the watchman's attention finally fraying at the edges the way attention does. And on the other side of the hearth, one of the dusk sleepers has surfaced, sat up, drunk from the water skin, and come to take his place at the stone without a word passing between them, the whole handover conducted in a nod. The new watcher settles in, side on to the coals, eyes out. The relieved man crawls in among the warm bodies inside the second ring, between his brother and the dog-shaped bundle that is his brother's son, pulls a hide to his chin and is gone in a dozen breaths. And the night, which does not pause for shift changes, goes on pouring its cold down the valley walls, and the fires hold, and out along the ridgeline the hyenas call again, farther now, a question moving away over the top of the world. It is worth stopping the night here, with the camp asleep and the second watch settled, to meet the neighbors properly, because everything the band does after dark is a reply to them. The valley holds, by day, no animal, a healthy adult human with a spear and friends needs to fear. By night it holds several, and the first among them is the one that came to look this evening. The cave lion, a cat a quarter larger than any lion alive today, long-legged, faintly striped in the old paintings people will one day make of it, and equipped, like every cat, with a mirror behind each eye that throws light back through the retina and turns starlight into daylight. The band saw its eyes flash green because of that mirror. Humans have no mirror. On the same starlit flat, the lion reads fine print and the man reads headlines. The numbers of the mismatch are worth sitting with, because they are the whole reason the fire exists. A cat's eye opens perhaps 6 times wider to the dark than a human's, and behind it that reflecting layer gives every photon 2 chances instead of 1. Add whiskers that map moving air, ears that swivel like dishes, and the patience of a professional, and the night belongs to the cat so completely that it does most of its living in it. Human eyes, by contrast, are daylight instruments, color-rich, detail-hungry, and nearly useless in the last hour of dusk. Whatever the band's ancestors were doing when this design was set, they were doing it in the sun. The people by the fire are day animals renting space in a nocturnal world, and every night of the deep past was the rent coming due. The second neighbor announces itself distantly several times a night. The cave hyena, heavier than any spotted hyena of the modern savanna, running in clans a dozen strong, with jaws built to open bones the lion leaves closed. The whooping that rolled along the ridge earlier was clan business, position and roll call, and the band can tell those social calls from the sharp, giggling chatter the clan makes over a kill. A sound that carries its own instruction. Stay away or come, depending on how hungry you are and how brave. Hyenas test camps. They are bolder than cats about light, clever about gaps, and they work in numbers. And the low thorn and branch barrier on the camp's upwind side, the one that looks too flimsy to stop anything, exists because a barrier does not need to stop a hyena. It needs to slow one in the dark for the 2 seconds it takes a watcher to reach the fire. The wolves are the near neighbors, near enough that the band knows some of them by voice. Ice Age wolves ran bigger than most of their modern descendants, and a pack in a hungry February is a serious instrument, but the relationship between wolves and this camp is stranger than fear. Wolves shadow human hunts and clean human kills, and have learned the camp's mean bones and scraps at a survivable distance. The band, in turn, has learned that the wolves' evening howling is a broadcast service, that a pack that suddenly goes silent has found something worth stalking, and that the direction the silence comes from is worth a watcher's attention. Some of the wolves at the edge of some camps in these exact millennia are in the first generations of becoming dogs, though nobody at this fire will live to see how that turns out. Tonight they are just voices on the ridge, known ones in the right place, saying the ordinary things. There is a fifth presence in the valley that the band thinks about differently, because it does not hunt them and could not be stopped if it did. The cave bear, half again the weight of the biggest brown bears alive today, a mostly peaceable eater of roots and berries that happens to be built like a walking hillside. The band's problem with the cave bear is real estate. The deep limestone caves along the ridge, the driest, warmest, most defensible sleeping sites in the whole valley, are cave bear property every winter, floor after floor of them polished by centuries of enormous sleeping bodies. People and bears have been trading those addresses back and forth for tens of thousands of years, usually in different seasons, occasionally not, and the stories about occasionally not are the kind the old woman does not tell after dark. The band's rise by the river is, among everything else, a choice to live in the open rather than negotiate housing with something that outweighs the whole family. Put the neighbors together, and the shape of the night's economy comes clear. The valley after dark is a market, and the band's camp is one stall in it, and every hunter that passes does the same sums. A camp is meat in quantity, yes. It is also fire which cannot be reasoned with, and spears from several directions at once, which the lion has felt before and remembers, and noise that summons the whole strange day-animal clan into a wall of torches and stones. Set against that, the same night offers horses on the flat with no fire at all, reindeer in the shallows, a hyena kill on the ridge that might be bullet away from its owners. Every predator that looked at the camp tonight and moved on was not being merciful. It was comparing prices, and the band's entire craft, the sight, the three fires, the smoke, the watch, the noise, exists to lose that comparison every single night on purpose. The children of the band learn the neighbors the way children learn anything, as a curriculum disguised as ordinary life. The tracks by the willows this evening got named for the boy who carried the wood, pressed deep at the front, that is weight going onto the toes, that is a cat placing its feet. The green flash of eyes at the light's edge, the two-note difference between hyena talk and hyena dinner, the reason you never leave the marrow bones inside the sleeping ring, the reason you bank a fire instead of letting it die proud and bright and fast. All of it is taught in the same tone a modern parent uses for the kettle and the crossing light, which is to say almost casually, almost as a game. So many times that by 10 years old, the knowledge is not knowledge anymore, but reflex. Nobody in the band has ever taken an exam. Everybody in the band has only ever taken finals, and the finals are at night, and everyone currently alive has passed everyone so far. What the neighbors think of the band, no one can ever fully say, but their behavior says a great deal, and what it says is that somewhere in the long mutual education of the Ice Age Valley, the night hunters have filed humans under a category all their own. Not prey or not first-choice prey, though the very old, the very young, and the alone have always been a different entry in the ledger. Not rivals exactly, though a determined band can strip a fresh kill from anything short of a full lion pride. Something more like weather, unpredictable, occasionally dangerous, best routed around. The lion that walked away tonight did not flee. It rescheduled. And the watchman who watched it go did not celebrate, because he knows the category the camp lives in is maintained nightly by the fire and the watch and the noise, and that the one thing the valley never forgets is what an unlit, unwatched, quiet camp smells like. There is one more neighbor, the one nobody watches for, and it takes more of the band than all the others together, the cold itself. The lion kills the careless traveler in a story the band tells. The cold kills in the stories the band lives. A sleeper who rolls off the warmed ground, a child whose hide slips in the deep hours, a watcher who lets the fire fall too far because his eyes closed for what he honestly believed was a moment, an early storm on a hunting trip that turns one night out into a final one. The fires are banked against animals in the stories and against the cold in fact, and the sleeping circle is armor against teeth in the stories and against the slow theft of body heat in fact, and the band, which has a rich vocabulary of respect for the lion, treats the cold with something closer to the respect we keep for gravity. Never named as an enemy, never once forgotten. And still, knowing all of it, the ledger of the neighbors has a bottom line that surprises people looking back from the bright side of history. The system worked. Night after night, valley after valley, millennium after millennium, bands of a few dozen day-blind primates slept on open ground amid the finest carnivore guild the planet has produced since the dinosaurs, and lost so few, so rarely, that the losses became stories with names that lasted generations. The fire held. The watch held. The circle held. The proof is not in any single night, but in the simple arithmetic of descent. Everyone alive today, all 8 billion, descends in an unbroken line through roughly 2,000 generations of nights exactly like this one. And an unbroken line means that on every single one of those nights, in every ancestral camp without exception, the system held long enough for morning. Tonight is one of those nights, halfway through its work, and the fires are burning low, and the coldest hours are still ahead. Somewhere past the middle of the night, the moon goes down behind the western ridge, and the valley changes state. The silver map the first watchman used is gone. What remains is starlight only, enough for the adapted eye to tell water from land and sky from ridge. And the temperature, which has been falling all night in a slow glide, puts on a last determined descent. This is the hour the band's language, like many languages after it, gives its own name, the dead of the night, the hour when the fires matter most and the watching is hardest, when yesterday is fully spent and morning is not yet a rumor, and the whole camp, sleepers and watchers alike, is simply enduring together inside the ring of warmth, while the great cold night of the world leans on them from every side at once. And here in the deepest hour, the camp does something that will look like a malfunction to the people of the far future, and was, for the whole deep past, simply how humans slept. It wakes up. Not to an alarm, not all at once, but sleeper by sleeper, the first stretch of sleep having run its 3 or 4 hours and let go. An old man sits up and feeds the coals. A mother nurses her infant back down. 2 quiet voices pick up a conversation exactly where dusk left it. In the future, when nights are walled and lit, people who wake like this at 3 in the morning will lie rigid, certain something is wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with them. The 2-part night, first sleep and second sleep with a soft waking hour between, is the factory setting, documented in firelit communities wherever researchers have looked, and in the written records of whole centuries that treated the watch between sleeps as ordinary furniture of the night. The waking hour has its uses, and the band spends it the way it spends everything, on several things at once. The fires get their deep night feeding, the slow oak going on beds of coal that will carry heat to dawn. The sleeping circle redistributes itself by some unspoken thermal arithmetic. The ones who ran warm at dusk now cooler and moving inward, hides retucked around children who have squirmed free. Someone steps out to the edge of the ring, no farther, because the edge of the ring is a hard border at this hour. And the half-awake talk that drifts across the coals is its own institution, the softest hour of human speech, dreams told while they are still warm, worries said aloud that daylight would make too heavy, plans for tomorrow at the hour when tomorrow is still safely theoretical. Then one by one the voices drop out, and the second sleep takes the camp down again. The watch, through all of this, changes hands along the body clock roster, and the deep hour belongs to the early risers, the ones whose eyes dragged shut at dusk and have now had their fill. The old man who fed the coals is one of them, and he does not go back down. He settles against the watch stone with a hide over his knees, and around him the camp breathes in its second sleep, and he does what the old have done on the deep watch for 2,000 generations, which is everything and nothing. Tends the fire by feel, listens to the score of the night, and thinks his own long thoughts. The researchers who measured the fire-lit bands found this too, that the older sleepers wake earliest and sleep lightest, and noted, without being able to prove it, how neatly a grandmother dozing at 4 in the morning closes the one gap in the roster. The band has never read the study. The band is the study. Deep night is when the river gets loud. Nothing about the water has changed, everything about its competition has. The wind lies down, the last birds are hours gone, the sleeper's own daytime noise is switched off. And into that silence the river rises like a voice coming closer, every gravel bar and eddy suddenly articulate. The old man on watch hears it the way you hear a clock you have lived with for years, not at all, until it changes. A new note in the water at this hour means something specific, a body crossing, and the size of the disturbance says the size of the body. And one night years ago the river said something the size of a lion at the Narrows, and said it to a watcher who had never been told what that sounded like and knew it instantly anyway. Tonight the river runs through its known repertoire, bar by bar, and says nothing new the whole deep hour, which is the entire art of listening at night. 1,000 small confirmations that the world is still shaped the way it was when the light left. The cold at this hour has a texture the band knows intimately, and we have almost entirely forgotten, because we meet cold in doorways and they lived inside it for whole seasons. It comes in layers. The moving cold of the valley wind, which the windbreaks blunt. The standing cold of the air itself, which the fires push back into that ring the width of a living room. And underneath both patient, the cold of the ground, the deep chill of the earth in the freezing months, which no fire can argue with directly, and which is why the band sleeps on a mattress it rebuilt this evening. Dry grass and hides overground the hearth has been baking all day. A full handspan of insulation between each sleeping back and the planet. The people of the deep past are sometimes imagined as indifferent to cold, hardened past feeling it. The truth is the opposite and better. They felt it exactly as we would and beat it every night with engineering. An infant wakes crying somewhere in the second ring, the sound abrupt and enormous in the sleeping quiet, and the response around it is so practiced it looks choreographed. The mother has the child at her breast inside 3 heartbeats. The sleepers on either side shift closer, closing the warm gap her movement opened. The old man on watch does not look at the crying. He looks away from it, out into the dark, at the places the cry might be heard from, because a night cry is information traveling in both directions. And for the half minute it lasts, his attention stands at its highest pitch of the whole watch. Then the child settles, the small sound winds down into feeding. The camp reknits itself around the interruption, and the dark outside the ring, which had perhaps leaned in slightly, leans back. Every human infant ever born has cried into that same listening dark. The system has an answer for it. The answer is 3 heartbeats long, and it has been enough every night for 2,000 generations. In the last stretch of the deep hour, frost forms. The sleeper's breath has been rising all night in slow plumes, and now it comes down again as rime, silvering the hides, the windward side of the watchstone, the old man's beard, the grass beyond the ring in a pale border that maps precisely the line where the fire's influence ends. The cold has spent the whole night riding its perimeter around the camp, and at first light the band will be able to read it. A ring of white with a circle of plain dark grass inside, the exact territory the 3 fires held, drawn on the world like a signature. Inside the line, 20 people, breathing slow, a handspan of engineering under them and banked coals beside them. Outside it, the valley, silvered and silent and enormous. The border between those 2 countries is made of firewood, and it is holding, and the boy who carried that firewood is asleep in the middle of everything he carried it for. What the sleepers are doing, while the old man keeps the border, is not idle, though it will take the far future a long time to understand that. Behind the closed eyes around the coals, the day is being filed. The tracks by the willows, the lion's green eyes at the light's edge, the 2-note reading of the hyenas on the ridge, the boy's proud staggering load of wood, all of it is being sorted, weighted, cross-referenced against every night before it, pruned and kept, the useful welded onto reflex, the rest let go. The band wakes each morning fractionally better at the valley than it fell asleep, and none of them has ever wondered why, any more than they wonder why food becomes strength. Sleep is where the curriculum of the fireside becomes the instinct of the next dusk. It is the one work no enemy can interrupt and no cold can freeze the whole night through, and it is getting done in every sleeping head in the circle right now. The deep hour ends the way it always ends, imperceptibly. No line crosses the sky. The stars over the eastern ridge are perhaps fractionally fewer, the black there perhaps a shade less absolute, and the old man on watch, who has seen more of these transitions than anyone else alive on the rise, registers the change the way he registers everything, without moving. The coldest point of the whole night comes now, strangely exactly as the first hint of morning does. The last of yesterday's heat spent and the new day's not yet arrived, and the fires are at their lowest, 3 beds of breathing orange under gray ash, and the camp is as quiet as it will ever be. And the night, which has been leaning on the ring of light for 12 hours with all its weight and all its eyes, has begun, very slowly, without admitting anything, to lose. But before morning wins, the night gets one real chance, and it comes now in the trough of the deep hour, and it starts with the wind. A shift first, a change of direction that makes the smoke stagger, and then a long cold gust down the valley that flattens the flames of the main hearth against their coals and snatches a stream of sparks off into the dark. The old man is up before the gust ends. Wind is the one visitor the fires genuinely fear, not because it can kill them outright, but because it makes them spend burning an evening's wood in an hour, shaving the banked coals thin, and the woodpile, which was a comfortable number of bundles at dusk, is now, in the arithmetic he does without wanting to, a number with no comfort left in it. The margin the band walked home on at sunset has been walking away from them all night, and the wind has just picked up its pace. He wakes one other, the woman who slept within touching distance of the first watchman, and the two of them work the fires in the flattening wind with the economy of people who have done this exact bad hour before. The two outer fires, the geometry fires, are allowed to fall to coal beds and are blanketed deep in ash, banked down to their embers, heat savings sealed against the wind spending. The main hearth gets the last of the slow oak and a rebuilt windbreak, a hide stretched low between stakes on the upwind side, angled the way you angle a hand around a match. The circle of light contracts as the outer fires dim, the island shrinking, the dark stepping one pace closer on two sides, and this is the calculated risk of the bad hour. Concentrate what remains, hold the center, and trust the watch to cover with attention what the light no longer covers with certainty. The valley notices. Of course it notices. The camp has been broadcasting its state all night to every ear and eye and nose in the dark, and the broadcast has changed. Less light. Less smoke. The sound of two people working quickly where there had been the sound of one person sitting still. Out along the scent lanes downwind, the news travels at the speed of the gust itself. The fire animal's territory has grown smaller. Nothing in the dark makes a decision yet. Decisions cost energy, and the night's economists spend nothing on speculation. But attention is cheap, and attention turns. On the ridge, a clan of hyenas moving between old kills adjusts its route by a few degrees, not toward the camp exactly, but along a line that keeps the shrunken light in view, the way you might drift toward a shop window without any intention, yet, of going in. The woman keeps the watch turned outward while the old man feeds the hearth, and it is her ears that catch it first, in the gap between gusts. The hum of the small lives has gone out, downwind, in the reeds. Not faded, gone, a hole in the score the size of the willow flats, and moving. She does not see anything, there is nothing yet to see. The starlight shows her reeds and river and the pale border of frost. But the silence is traveling, in the way silence does when it is being pushed ahead of something walking through the world that small things hold their breath around. And she counts its progress the way the first watchman counted the stone that moved, landmark to landmark, and it is coming up the near bank, out of the wind's eye, on the side where the outer fire is banked to embers, and she reaches back without looking and puts her hand on the old man's arm. What she wakes is not the camp but the system. Two touches the old man and the nearest outer sleeper, and the wake travels the ring on its own, hand to shoulder, silent, until 5 adults are up and armed without one voice being raised. Spears from where spears live points into the wind, and the youngest watcher is already crouched at the banked outer fire with a fistful of birch splits, waiting on the word. The children sleep through all of it and are meant to. The circle around them has thickened by exactly the amount the situation has earned no more, because panic is expensive and the night is long and most alarms, the band's whole history says, are the wind or a deer or nothing. The woman stands at the edge of the light with her head turned side-on to the dark, listening the silence forward, and the silence comes on, patient, to the edge of the reeds and stops. For the space of 40 breaths, the night holds the shape of a question. The reeds at the border of the frost line stay motionless in the wind's pauses, and in that stillness there is a weight, a sense the woman has learned to trust across 100 false alarms and 3 real ones, of a large, deliberate body folded down against the ground, doing exactly what she is doing, which is listening and measuring, and deciding whether the price has truly dropped. The hyena clan on the ridge has drifted closer through the dark, drawn down the line of their adjusted route, and now stands strung along the slope in the reed shadow, 7 of them, heads low, reading the shrunken island of light with senses the band cannot imagine, and what happens next will be decided, as it is always decided, by arithmetic, and the woman who cannot see a single one of them changes the arithmetic herself. She says one word, low, back over her shoulder. And the word is now. The birch splits go onto the banked embers of the outer fire all at once, and the ember bed, which has spent the windy hour sealed under ash doing nothing but staying alive, takes them the way a held breath takes air. The flame that stands up off that coal bed stands up taller than a man, a sudden orange tower in the exact quarter of the dark where the silence lives, and the light of it goes out across the frost line and into the reeds and finds them. 7 long-shouldered shapes caught mid-stillness, eyes coming back green-gold and huge, and the camp on the same heartbeat makes its noise. Not screaming, nothing so spendthrift. The stones, the flat hard crack of river stone on river stone from 3 sets of hands, and one voice, the old man's, pitched low and carrying, the voice of the place sound that means the same thing in every language that will ever exist. Saying, awake. All of us. The economics resolve in under a minute. 7 hyenas against a lit, woken, armed camp is a price no clan pays for uncertain meat, and the shapes in the reeds unwind from their stillness one by one, unhurried even now, professionals to the end, and swing away along the frost line with their strange, downsloped gait. And the last of them pauses at the edge of the light's reach and looks back once. A long, assessing look with the fire standing in its eyes, filing the camp under tonight's answer, which is the same as every night's answer, which is no. The woman watches them go the way the first watchman watched the lion go, all the way out of knowing, and then 100 breaths past that, and the wind, as if its part in the affair were done, begins in the same minutes to die back down the valley, and the reeds take up their ordinary conversation, and the small lives, one patch at a time, switch their hum back on. The unwinding of the camp is as practiced as its arming. Spears go back to where spears live. The tower of flame on the outer fire is not wasted. It is banked expertly down onto its refreshed coals, its work done, its heat kept. The 5 standing adults settle back into the circle one at a time, each pausing in some version for the same unremarkable ritual. A hand laid briefly on a sleeping child's back, not to wake, just to count 1, 2, 3 all here, the oldest accounting in the world. Within a quarter hour the rise looks exactly as it looked before the wind shifted, 1 old man at the watch stone, 1 woman lying back down within touching distance, a circle of slow breath around banked fires, and the only evidence that the night made its move and was answered is a scatter of fresh ash on the upwind side, and 7 sets of tracks in the frost that morning will find at the reed line, none of them inside it. The old man does not sleep again and does not try. Dawn is close now. He can feel it in the particular quality of the cold, and the watch after an alarm belongs, by a custom nobody made, to whoever is oldest awake, the long thoughts of the deep hour giving way to something simpler, a plain standing guard over the last and lowest mile of the night. He feeds the main hearth a measured branch and watches the sparks go up and thinks, in whatever shape such thoughts took 40,000 years before our words for them, the thought every century in every age has thought toward the end of a hard watch, that the enemy came and the wall held and the people slept, and that this tonight was enough. Above the eastern ridge, unmistakable now, the black has gone to charcoal, and the charcoal is going gray. The gray over the eastern ridge is real now, a slow dilution of the black, but the band's word for this hour, if we could hear it, would not be a morning word. This is the long cold, the stretch that costs the most and shows the least, when the night has stopped being dangerous in the way of eyes and become dangerous in the way of arithmetic. The fires are on their last planned wood. The bodies in the circle are at the far end of their meal, burning low exactly when the air outside is at its coldest, and every sleeper has pulled unconsciously into the same shape, knees drawn up, hands tucked, backs pressed to neighbors, the circle at its tightest diameter of the whole night. Nothing is wrong. This is the hour that was always going to come, the one the woodpile was counted for at dusk, and the count, thanks to the wind, is going to be close. The old man solves the arithmetic the way it has always been solved, by spending reserves that are not wood. The windbreak hide comes off its stakes and goes over the two children nearest the outer edge. The heated stones of the hearth ring, the ones that have been drinking flame all night, get lifted with two sticks and carried, radiating like small suns, into the sleeping circle, one tucked against the small of a back here, one at a pair of feet there, the oldest central heating on the planet. And the boy who carried the wood surfaces halfway from sleep as a stone settles against him, registers warm, and goes back down without ever knowing. He was the subject of a resource allocation decision that his great-great-grandmother's generation would have recognized move for move. The fire is not only in the hearth. By the end of a long night, it has been distributed. There is a version of this hour that every band carries in its stories, the version where the arithmetic fails. The winter camp where the wood ran out in a storm that lasted 2 days. The hunting party caught by early snow, one valley too far from home. The stories are told rarely and never at night, but they are told with names in them, because the stories are the band's actuarial tables, the exact price of every margin cut too fine, kept alive in memory the way we keep records in ledgers. The old man was a boy in one of those stories. He does not think of it now, or he thinks of it only in the way it lives in his hands, which have already, without consulting him, restacked the remaining wood by burn order and set aside, separate from everything, the emergency bundle of birch bark and fatwood splits that would light wet, light in wind, light with numb fingers, the last fire of all, the one you never planned to need. Out in the valley, the night is conducting its own retreat with the discipline of an army that intends to return. The hunters are coming home from their work, and the watch can read the whole night's news in the manner of their returning. The wolves cross the flat downriver strung out and quiet, heavy-bellied, which means their silence in the middle hours was a kill and the kill went well, and a fed pack is a safe pack for a full day, useful knowledge. The hyena clan recrosses the ridge in the last dark with nothing in their voices, which means their night was long and empty, and an empty clan tonight will be a bold clan tomorrow, and that is useful knowledge too. The valley's ledger balances itself in front of the camp every dawn for anyone with the patience to read it, and the watch has nothing but patience and reads it all. The lion is the last to pass, and it passes close, closer than anything has all night, walking the frost line where the reeds meet the flat with the unhurried gait of something that is eaten. In the gray half-light, the watch can see it properly for the first time, the length of it, the deep chest, the faint dappled ghost striping along the flank, the head carried low and level, and it does not look at the camp at all as it goes, not once, which is its own kind of message. The horses at the river bend are one fewer this morning. That is where the night went. The old man stands at the watchstone and turns slowly to keep it in view as it passes, not from fear at this distance, in this light, with the camp behind him, but from the oldest professional courtesy in the world, one keeper of a territory acknowledging the rounds of another. The lion walks up into the birch shadow of the ridge, and the shadow takes it, and the valley, for the first time since sunset, holds nothing the camp needs watching for. The birds call it. The same thrush that closed the evening opens the morning, one phrase from the willows, tentative like a question asked of the gray air, and then the whole downriver answering it in the same order as dusk run backward, and the effect inside the sleeping circle is immediate and strange. Bodies that slept flat through hyenas and wind, and a standing camp alarm begin to stir at birdsong. The old deep circuitry knows the score too, knows that the small lives sing only into a safe world, that the birds are the valley's own all clear, and it releases its hold on the sleepers a few at a time, the early risers first, eyes opening onto the pale sky without alarm, the night's contract complete. Nothing woke you because nothing needed you. That, and not the absence of danger, was the promise. The danger came twice. The circle held twice. You are hearing about it now, at dawn, with the kettle sound of the fire being rebuilt, which is the correct time to hear about anything. The camp comes up off the ground in the reverse of its evening descent, outer ring first. The fires are unbanked, the sealed coals raked open, still alive, all three. A full night's engineering vindicated in 3 small towers of new flame, and the first real warmth in hours rolls across the circle and is received the way it has been received forever. Hands out, eyes shut, the whole band turning toward the hearths like a field of slow flowers. The frost border shows its perimeter, silver-white, ruler-clean at the exact radius where the fire's reach ended. And the children, awake now and immortal again by daylight, run the line of it, stamping dark footprints into the white, spending in 5 loud minutes the energy the night spent 12 quiet hours protecting, and nobody stops them because the noise of children in the morning is the sound of the system having worked, and every adult in the camp hears it exactly that way. The morning audit happens the way it happens every morning, without ever being called anything. The 2 men who walked the perimeter at dusk walk it again at first light, reading what the night wrote. The lion's passage along the frost line, measured against the memory of where it walked last month, and the month before, a moving average kept in no ledger but kept. 7 sets of hyena tracks at the reed line, come to the exact edge of the old outer firelight and no farther, the refreshed coal bed's tower of flame having drawn, in the frost, a precise map of its own authority. The pressed grass by the boulder from 2 nights ago, checked again, older now, cold. And at the end of the circuit, the 2 men stand a moment at the watchstone looking down at the whole story stamped in white and mud, the night's entire negotiation legible at their feet, and one of them says the thing that stands for the whole report, the same word the woman said to the fire, worn smooth by the opposite use. Nothing. Meaning everything, and it held. Breakfast is the night's last accounting. The stones come out of the sleeping circle and go back to the hearth ring, their heat repaid. The emergency bundle, unneeded, goes back into its dry place under the overhang, untouched for another night, which is its entire career, being ready and being unneeded, the best job in the camp. The remaining wood is counted openly, plain arithmetic in daylight now instead of dread arithmetic in the dark, and the count sets the day's first assignment. The wind spent them low, and today the boy will not be the only one hauling deadfall. The whole band's afternoon already mortgaged to tonight's 14 hours, because the first rule of the evening is made true by the whole shape of the day. And the day is already, an hour past dawn, bending itself around the coming dark. It never stops being about the night. It is only ever between nights. And this is the part that is easy to miss, watching them eat by the rebuilt fires in the strengthening light. They are not relieved. Relief is for near things, and nothing about last night was near, by their accounting. A lion assessed them and repriced. A clan tested them and was answered by a coal bed and 7 stacked birch splits. The wind audited their woodpile and found it barely sufficient. By the standards of 2,000 generations, that is not a close call. That is Tuesday. The children are fed first, the tools come out, the day's work sorts itself into hands, and the night that has just ended is already being compressed into its few useful facts. The fed pack, the empty clan, the one fewer horses, the low wood, and filed where the band files everything in habit, in story, in the next dusk's small adjustments. Nobody will ever write any of it down. It will all be remembered anyway, in the only archive that matters here, which is what 20 people do tomorrow evening when the shadows touch the river again. Step back from the rise now, up and away, the camp shrinking to a smudge of smoke and a ring of trampled frost beside a river catching the first low sun, and hold the one fact that the whole night has been demonstrating. This worked. Not once, not this valley, not this lucky band. Everywhere, always, for the entire deep run of the human past. The fire, the circle, the staggered watch, the reed ground, the banked coals, the counted wood, every piece of it invented nowhere and everywhere, taught by no one and everyone. The same solution assembled independently in every inhabited valley on the planet because the night posed the same problem in all of them, and there is, it turns out, one best answer. We are not descended from the strongest thing in that valley, or the fastest, or anything close to the best armed. We are descended from the thing that organized its evenings. Run the numbers on what the system was up against, and its record becomes almost unreasonable. A creature that goes functionally blind for 12 to 14 hours out of every 24, in a landscape administered after dark by specialists with mirrored eyes and mapped noses, should be a rounding error in the carnivore ledger, a species of convenient calories. Instead, the losses were rare enough to become legends, and the day-blind creature's population curve bent across those exact millennia in only one direction. The night hunters had the eyes, the speed, the weapons, and half of every day to use them. The day animal had a chemical reaction it had learned to feed, a shape it had learned to sleep in, and a roster its body clocks wrote automatically, and that was enough, and it was not close. Every wall ever built afterward is a footnote to that result. The first wall was made of light, and it was ankle high, and it held for 50,000 years. And the strangest inheritance from all those held nights is not a defense at all, but a feeling. Somewhere across those 2,000 generations, the human nervous system did something no engineer would have predicted. It fell in love with the fortification. The crackle of burning wood, the specific orange of a low flame, the smell of wood smoke, warmth on the face with cold at the back, low voices nearby in the dark. These are not neutral stimuli to a human being anywhere on Earth, and they are not learned. Pulse rates measurably drop beside a fire. Blood pressure eases. Strangers talk more easily and about deeper things. The fire was the safest place the species ever stood for 99% of its existence, and the body still files it that way, below thought, beside heartbeat, and every fireplace, every candle, every campfire, every screen playing a loop of burning logs in an apartment that has never once been cold, is the same ancient lock still turning in the same ancient key. You carry more of the camp than the love of fire. The whole architecture of your nights was drawn on that rise. The heaviness that lands behind your eyes when the light goes amber and low, that is the descent to the hearth. The way a wrong small sound at 3 in the morning sits you upright, heart loud, while the storm that shook the windows all night never woke you once, that is the sentry system, still running the score. The 3 a.m. Waking itself, the one that feels like a malfunction in a world of solid walls, that is the watch between the two sleeps, arriving on schedule into a century that forgot it was ever normal. Even the pull to sleep with the door closed and your back to something solid, the faint wrongness of a bed in the middle of a room, that is the circle, asking where the rest of it went. Nothing is wrong with you. You are running beautifully on settings tuned for a night that ended 10,000 years ago. Because it did end, and against everything the deep past would have bet, the day animal ended it. Walls first, mud brick and timber, night made small enough to hold in a room. Then herds fenced and hunters fenced out, the carnivore guild pushed back ridge by ridge until the lion that walked the frost line exists in most of the world, only in the paintings its neighbors left on cave walls, pigment eyes still watching from rock that remembers firelight. Then lamps, then streets of lamps, then the electric flood that erased the dark so completely that the Milky Way the boy fell asleep under is now a rumor to most of the species, something people drive hours into deserts to see once. The great 14-hour siege is over, has been over for 100 generations, and it was won so totally that its winners have to be reminded it ever happened, every night of it, every fire of it, all the way down. But listen to what the victory kept. The bedtime story survives, told at the exact hour stories were always told, in the soft voice the fireside hour always used, its job unchanged, to hold the mind gently while the body descends. The nightlight survives, a single small ember allowed to burn till morning in the corner of a child's room, and no parent who plugs one in has ever once thought of a banked coal, and no child who sleeps easier by it has ever needed the history explained. The good night round survives, the naming and touching of each person before the dark, the count that always comes out right and is always done anyway. The whole liturgy of human bedtime, unbroken from the rise by the river to the room you are lying in now, because the problem it solved, the descent from waking into trust, never went away. Only the lions did. And this, in the end, may be why the dark stayed strange to us long after it stopped being dangerous. We remember it. Not as fact the way the old man remembered the winter story, but lower down in the settings. The reason a child who has never been threatened by anything asks for the door left open. The reason the last look into a dark hallway before bed exists at all. The reason absolute silence keeps you awake as surely as noise, and a house creaking into the small hours has a vocabulary your body answers point by point. 10,000 years of walls have not been enough to convince the oldest part of the brain that the siege is really over, And maybe that is not a flaw to be engineered away, but the last standing monument to the people on the rise, who bought, with 2 million years of held nights, the luxury you are about to exercise, the ability to find the dark merely boring. Nothing in history was ever more expensive than making the night dull. So spend it this dull, safe night, the way it was always meant to be spent. The room you are in holds the whole camp, compressed. The walls are the windbreak perfected. The radiator, or the duvet, or the sleeping bag, is the warmed ground and the traveling stones. The lock on the door is the thorn barrier. The streetlight through the curtain is the banked outer fire. The phone on the nightstand, silent, is the watch, standing its shift so completely that you have forgotten the shift exists, which was from the very beginning the entire point, the whole engineering goal of the 14-hour system. That the sleepers, at the center of everything, protected by everything, should know nothing about any of it. You were always meant to be the person in the middle of the circle. Tonight, at last, everyone gets to be. The band on the rise never knew any of this was coming, and it would not have mattered to them, because the night in front of them was always the whole assignment. And it is worth saying plainly, as their fires burned down one last time in the morning light, they were not enduring their lives, waiting for civilization to rescue them. The evenings by the fire were not a hardship posting. They were, by every account, the bones and hearths and painted caves can give full. The stories, the slow work in the warm light, the enormous stars, the children asleep in the middle of everything, the watch kept and handed on, the mornings that came. People lived whole lives inside that system and loved inside it and grew old inside it. And when they finally slept their last sleeps, they slept them at the center of a circle, warm, counted, and guarded, which is more than history managed for a great many of the people who came after walls. The sun is fully up on the rise now, 40,000 years ago, and the night we have spent there is over. The fires are loud again, the children are stamping the frost line. The 2 men are back from the perimeter with their one-word report, and the boy is already down at the deadfall with his arms open, beginning tonight. It will go on like this, dusk and watch and deep hour and dawn, for longer than anything we have built has yet lasted, and every one of those nights will end exactly like this one, in smoke and birdsong and counted heads, because the ones that ended otherwise are not in the line, and you are, which means your particular chain of nights is perfect, all the way down, 20,000 dawns of it, each one somebody's held watch, each one somebody's banked coal, each one somebody staying awake, so that somebody else could do what you are about to do now. The valley is quiet now, and the fires are down to warm stone and gray ash, holding their heat for the evening, the way they always did. Somewhere tonight on the other side of those 20,000 dawns, a light is on in a hallway, and a door is locked without anyone thinking about it, and the watch is standing its shift inside a phone, inside a wall, inside a world the people on the rise built one held night at a time. None of it needs anything from you tonight. The circle is old and it is holding. If this kept you company, there is a new one of these every week, and it will be here whenever you need it. Sleep well. You are in the middle of the circle now, and the fire has been carried a very long way to reach you.